From the land of sky blue waters, welcome to the Sota Pod. Isha here, and I thank you for joining us wherever and whenever you are listening. The Hoppy Hour is back, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. First segment of the show, Hoppy Hour. I'm going to try to do this weekly. It's going to be a regular segment again. I promise it's going to be a regular segment again. Whether it's consistently weekly or 2-3 times a month, the Hoppy Hour segment is back here, ladies and gentlemen. So we will jump to that in a moment for a better experience of the Hoppy Hour as it's a vlog. If you're on the podcast side, the audio is going to come through well as I explain everything of our fun little 3 brewery excursion. But if you want the full visual and better experience, go check us out on YouTube, as this episode of the Sota Pod is going to be on YouTube. You guys are loving the full video Sota Pod episodes, so we're going to continue to post them on YouTube. So Hoppy Hour segment, and then we're bringing on our friend Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild. He's going to join us for, I think it was like 50 plus minutes of nonstop Wild talk as the Wild prepare for a playoff push. Absolutely insane. I have mixed feelings. You'll hear all that and more in the interview. Before we jump over to the Hoppy Hour in our interview, though, just want to give a big shout out to our friends at 7th Avenue Pizza. Guys, 7th Avenue Pizza just last week, had $3 off at Hy-Vee. They have sales all the time at Kowalski. Holiday stations, you can buy 3, get 1 free. 7th Avenue Pizza, go get you some today. Also, I want to give a big shout out to our friends at Northland Vodka before heading out on the brewery run yesterday, as it was a fun Sunday. Let's just say that. I was pouring myself a little Northland vodka in my orange juice as the breweries opened their doors early Sunday afternoon. Before we caught the Uber out there, we started off the day with a little Northland vodka, and it was incredible. The best vodka in the world. And it comes from the state of hockey, ladies and gentlemen. Small percentage of each sale go back into the community and go towards local hockey as well. So there you go. If that's not incentive enough to support this awesome local brand in Northland Vodka, the product is amazing. Go support them here today. Just like with 7th Avenue Pizza, if your local bar or liquor store doesn't carry Northland Vodka, ask them why. And let's get them on more shelves today. All right. On the other side, the Hoppy Hour, back here on the Sota Pod.
First, I'd like to propose a toast to UMD goaltender Alex Staal. To Staal. To Staal.
I love that stuff. Been drinking it for years. I heard they recently decided to add more hops to it.
You're all hopped out?
So today, my roommate Joe and I hit up a few breweries in North Loop, downtown Minneapolis. The Blue Jays. We started off with a personal favorite of mine. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Inbound Brewing. Inbound Brewing Company has a 12,000 square foot tap room, a converted recycling facility. The vibes are immaculate. We had the barista, a golden coffee ale, peanut butter milk stout, the Aviator, a hazy pale ale,
Radio Edit, I think it's one of the West Coast. Super good.
Fruit of the Loop, a West Coast IPA, and the MN Rice, a Minnesota rice porter.
Okay, this is the Minnesota Rice Porter. I honestly thought this would be a little bit lighter, but I mean, it is a porter, so it's dark, so let's try it. That's actually really good. It's super light. Here, I'm gonna let you try it. It's good.
Only because it's you, Isha.
No,
If this was Scott, I would not be trying.
It's not your typical porter.
I don't love it. I don't hate it.
I have not come here for one of their events yet, but I will surely make an effort to do so in the summer. If heaven was on earth, and on earth heaven was in North Loop, Minneapolis, it would be Brixworth. Their first location, located in Burnsville, Brixworth Brewing Co. is an amazing brew pub that excels in their chicken wings and Detroit-style pizza. I have never had a beer I did not like at Brixworth. at either location. We got a flight of 5 Goes West, a West Coast IPA, Slime Truck, a New England IPA, Ask Jeeves, another New England IPA, and Sticky Green and Bad Traffic, a West Coast Pilsner. Love how they incorporate the chalk art on the beer signs, kind of like our friends at Back Channel Brewing. You also know I had to try that chocolate milk peanut butter porter. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. Brixworth, pretty cool spot. But to get to the bathroom, okay? So it's downtown Minneapolis, North Loop, and it's in like apartment and other office complex. So to get to the bathroom, you literally have to walk like almost a mile. These funny guys from Florida who literally flew up to Minneapolis who were sitting next to us. They were tripped because of this trek as well. We've made it. I love this spot. Best Detroit style pizza in the city and in my top 3 wing spots in the Twin Cities. I want to like this brewery as much as those who are here. I mean, look at this place. It's packed, but I don't. I never did, and unfortunately, I still don't. Now, I do not mean to rip on this place, and that place is Modest Brewing. The beers are good in the upper tier of breweries as voted by you, but for me, nothing has ever stood out. Nothing has ever brought me back in the door in particular, and I never go back wanting to try their new barrel age. Oh, and they really didn't want me to get a flight. After the server passive-aggressively hinting at not wanting me to try multiple beers, I proceeded to then order a flight, and this is what I drank. Another day of another dream, a West Coast IPA, Pleasant Premonitions, a double red IPA, and Dream Yard, a New England IPA.
Okay, this is something new. This is a double red India Pale Ale coming in at 8%. Not something I usually try, so we're at Modest Brewing. We're gonna dive into this one. Nope, not for me.
Smile, Fletcher. Hi. Oh my God. Hi. Oh. Hi, buddy.
All right, guys. As expected, inbound Brixworth. They're my 2 favorites out of the little excursion that we did. Modest is a cool little joint here, as you can see. Cool tap room. Honestly, the most buzzing brewery as far as people being here. I don't know. Brixworth, the food, the pizza. Food is pizza. The chicken wings, the pizza, the beer were amazing. Inbound, I've always loved everything. Modest was fine. Modest was fine. We're going to pick up a 4-pack for the road, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Got him!
Maybe I'm salty as the clock hit 6:01 p.m. Then they also couldn't sell me a beer to bring home due to Sunday Minnesota liquor law. Sad. Sad vibes all around. Like and subscribe for more Hoppy Hour vlogs and podcast segments like this. Hope you guys liked that. Again, if you're listening to the podcast here, go check out that segment on YouTube. I will post it individually, both on my personal channel and on the Sota Pod YouTube channel, so you can just watch that. I think it was like a 6 to 7 minute vlog there. Let's now turn the page. Let's now talk some wild with host of Locked On Wild, Seth Toupal, here on the other side. And this interview is brought to you by our friends at Better Edge. That's right. Go ahead to betteredge.com/Sota Pod today, as it is a legal betting app in Minnesota. I repeat, legal betting app in Minnesota, along with 44 other states. And by going to betteredge.com/Sota Pod, you will get a $20 sign-up bonus, ladies and gentlemen, to play around with. We have game day pick'ems. That's right. The Sota Pod hosts game day pick'ems, where you can choose up to 7 picks, money line, player point totals, etc. Winner take all $5 entry. You already got some to play around with if you sign up by going to betteredge.com/Sota Pod. Free platform with legal betting in the great state of Minnesota, as well as 44 other states. Again, go to betteredge.com/Sota Pod and claim your $20 sign up bonus today. I will be starting to host events and UFC fight event pick'ems as well. Still a working title. So stay tuned for that. Those who listen to the Sota Pod, and also check out the fight content that I host on the City Life Project. BetterEdge.com/SotaPod. Go check it out today. Now let's bring in Seth Toupal and talk nothing but wild hockey. We have a longtime sports broadcaster, friend of the show, longtime friend of the show, and host of Locked On Wild on YouTube and on the podcast side of things, covering all things Minnesota Wild. My friend Seth Toupal. How's it going, buddy?
Isha, what's happening, man? We're just vibing out,
bro. We're vibing.
Just having a good time.
I was just going to say, we were having some great conversations before I clicked record here, and I was like, I'm just going to click record here because if not, we're going to be talking all night here. What are you sipping on, man? What are you sipping on? Because neither of us are sipping on beer. For a beer-based podcast, neither of us are sipping on any beers right now.
I've developed kind of a long-standing ritual to where I will get like a bottle of wine on a Friday night, just kind of unwind.
I like it.
Be video games or movies.
Lines and wines, baby.
Yeah, we're going back to the roots. So I've been doing that for a long time, but this weekend I was like, I think I'm gonna go in a little bit of a different direction. So I grabbed some Trulies and I'm sipping on a watermelon right now.
Oh, watermelon. I like it. My roommate picked up. So there's that Simply Lemonade. Now, no, it's not Newman's Lemonade. So like the hockey fans are just rolling their eyes at me right now. No beer, no Newman's Lemonade. What is this? But he got like the Simply spiked lemonades, which are honestly pretty good. There's a blueberry lemonade, a watermelon lemonade, and a strawberry lemonade. Strawberry, though, it's good. It's a little too sweet for me. This is just the straight up lemonade version, 5%. I mean, this is something you could just down on the boat in the summer, like on the lake. Like it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. Like the fact that there's alcohol in this is kind of fucked up, to be perfectly honest.
Vodka lemonades, if we're putting together like a ranking of,
this is better than Mike's, by the way.
Oh, vodka lemonades are sneaky. Like if you're putting together like your heavy hitters of the drink worlds, you've got your rum and Coke. Vodka lemonades are extremely underrated. Like they're just massive hits.
Well, I also think because it's a little bit sour, it keeps you wanting to drink more because you keep wanting to quench the thirst. And then the next thing you know, you're like 4 of them in and you're like, whoa, dude.
Like,
I was streaming the other night. I drank 2 in a row streaming fights. And for the first time ever, someone asked me, and like, I don't drink often on streams or anything, but one dude was like, are you okay? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you just seem a little weird. And I was like, oh, I blame whatever these Simply lemonades are. I blame these Simply lemonades. But no, I did just come home. I told Seth I was running errands, and I was running errands today, but I also took my roommate out for lunch. And while we were out for lunch, we stopped at Modest Brewing in downtown Minneapolis. Again, everybody loves Modest Brewing, and though I don't think any of their beers are bad, I've never had one where I've been like, wow, I'm coming back here for that beer. It's like, okay, like I understand why this is a good craft brewery and why people come here. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still not sold on Modest being like in the top 5 or oh man, I can't believe I'm going to say this, or even in people's top 10s. But I did go to Brixworth, which is an extension basically of Black Stack. Unbelievable Chicago style pizza and some of the best wings in Minnesota. Unbelievable chicken wings. We got the chicken parmesan and the Doritos Cool Ranch coated wings, and they were unbelievable. And they have some of the best beers in Minnesota, Seth. Like unbelievable beers, unbelievable food, unbelievable vibes. And then we also hit Inbound before that as well for a quick flight of just the regulars from Inbound, which is a sweet spot. There will be a segment in this podcast. You probably already heard it as I edit it in, where I talk about my day. And if you want to see the full vlog, check it out on YouTube. Big shout out to everyone who supports us on YouTube. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. So big shout out to everyone who supports us there. Big things to come. By the way, before we get into Wild Talk here, Seth has an awesome YouTube channel. Just quickly, I will give you a chance at the end of the show to plug everything that you do on the podcast side and stuff. But how are you enjoying the YouTube side of things? Because I know like you're very much a locked on podcast. You're very much a podcaster. That's how we first connected, was through the podcast world. But you are very much a YouTuber now. And just, to pull back the curtain a bit, when we were talking before recording here, we were getting into just like the trials, the tribulations, and just like the grind of growing a YouTube channel and staying active on YouTube and the whole 9 yards there. So how are you enjoying also being a YouTuber? Because I see you live streaming.
We're having a good time out there, but Isha, you and I are in the same kind of vein from a content perspective. Is as things grow, the sports world, it just immediacy is the way to do it.
Yep.
Like immediacy is what fans want from a content perspective. They want to be able to get immediate reaction when a player gets injured. Great example this weekend when Joel Eriksson got hurt at the end of the Seattle Kraken game. Everybody wants to know what's going on there because that's a big deal. And so, being able to hop in and say, John Hines said after the game, Joel Eriksson is going to be fine. And just give people that immediate exhale of, okay, thank God the season hasn't collapsed.
Again.
For the fifth time this season. People just want to be able to go to voices they trust, voices they enjoy listening to, shows they enjoy listening to, and to be able to get the reaction from those hosts about key topics. And, that has been, I think, one of the big challenges in being the host for Locked on Wild is it's a daily show. So you got to be able to come up with content that keeps people kind of on the edge of their seat, new topics, new everything else, but then to be able to be there when big news breaks, because if you're not there,
someone else
will
is.
Go to somebody else.
Yep. 100%. Yeah, man, it's been crazy, especially me doing work in hockey and in the combat sports world right now. I've been kind of splitting my time in two, and I just know with how up and down this Wild season has been with all the news, coming left, right, and center. I can say as a content creator in this space, I'm just so happy that I have Hoppy and Z to cover most of the immediate news, because, every weekend, my attention is towards combat sports. It's the weekdays that my attention is towards hockey. And it's just really cool to see that you were so plugged in and that you have this tremendous fan base and that you are first and immediately covering the stories at hand. So I'm just so happy to see your success, man. Because for those who don't know, Seth and the Sota Pod go way back. Like you said, the
way back.
The Lines and Wines Day, Wines and Lines, baby, let's go. Which I still think is the most epic name in the world. But anyway.
I'll never forget when we put that together as the name, people asking, wait, you guys don't do cocaine on the show, do you? And I'm like, lines as in hockey lines, my guy. No, we do not.
Oh my goodness. I remember too, because the first episode I think we had you guys on, I spilt beer all over my laptop and I couldn't believe that my laptop didn't actually explode. I had a casualty count with a work laptop. Ooh.
Yeah, that's so then you accidentally dump wine on a laptop and you're like, well, I need to make it look like this is not wine. Then you put a little water on it, dilute it a little bit.
Oh my goodness.
It's planting evidence at a crime scene.
And then you dump it in the bag of rice.
Then you're
go
like,
back to work the next day. Oh, it's good. It's good. I just coated it with some Windex and some paper towel. I just didn't wipe it up enough after. We're good.
You're like, hey, I accidentally spilled a glass of water on this laptop. Can you do something about it? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's get into some Wild talk, guys. Wild sit 5th in the Central, Seth. 28 wins, 24 losses, above 500. I mean, oh my goodness. Finally. A month ago, we were hoping for this team to tank. And I say we because this was literally 85-90% of Wild Twitter, the Minnesota Wild fan base that I saw on social media, which isn't the voice of every Wild fan. I do understand that. But it's a majority voice. It's a sample size that we can draw from. And everyone was hoping that this team will tank. Now, people in textbook sports fan fashion, I'm not even just I'm not dumbing this down to just Minnesota Wild fans here or just hockey fans. In typical sports fan fashion, people are now hoping for a playoff berth and playoff success. Do you think, Seth, that this team makes the playoffs? And if they do, are they going to make any noise at all?
See, this is tough because this is something that I have consistently been on the side of, like, just accept that this is kind of a lost season. But the Western Conference has been, especially in those underbelly wildcard spots, it's right there. Like, it's right there for the taking. You're not going to catch any of the top three in either division. But these wildcard teams, it seems like somebody gets a little bit of a lead, and then they go in the tank. Los Angeles Kings are starting to kind of play a little better, but they were in absolute free fall for a while. St. Louis is on a winning streak right now, but they're a very mediocre team.
How the Flames are even in it is beyond me, to be perfectly honest. It's crazy that they're still in it.
Every single person had written the Calgary Flames off like 3 weeks ago, and they're still here.
Dude, I thought you were going to say 3 months ago, because you would be accurate if you said that too.
Also that, like, there were people before the season who were like, I don't know what this Flames team's going to be. Probably not any good.
Bro, after the first month, I was like, oh yeah, nope. They're in fucking free fall and rebuild mode.
But it just speaks to, I think, the fact that a playoff spot is very attainable. But here are the things that you kind of have to look at for the Minnesota Wild. There have been a lot of inconsistencies this season. They have found a line combination, that Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson, line, that's capable of winning games, which you need in the regular season. But there are some things that would have to be shored up for sure if you're going into a playoff. If you're going into a playoff series, I guess the silver lining would be that you would be playing likely Vancouver instead of Winnipeg, Dallas, or Colorado, of which the Wild have precisely 0 wins against those 3 teams this season.
You want to see more of those Vancouver games that we just saw? Oh my God, we might all have heart attacks, my friend.
Yeah, the Wild lost in 7 games. They scored on average 11 goals per game, but they gave up 15. That would be chaos. But I think, like, we are so starved for postseason success with this team that anytime the opportunity to break that presents itself, people are like, yeah, why not? Minnesota Twins, good example of that. They were an incredibly mid team all season. They win the Central Division with like 84 wins, some low number like that. They won a postseason series. They beat the Toronto Blue Jays in the postseason because they got some key pitching performances and some timely hitting.
I'm just, can I just say, that made me so happy.
Oh, that series was amazing.
Dude, I know, like, Seth, you're a baseball guy. I'm not a big baseball guy, but I will say I hate the Blue Jays so much that it didn't matter what sport it was, to be honest. The fact that Minnesota was beating them and beat them, I was so happy. I was sitting at a Raising Cane's with Hoppy when it happened. We looked up at the screen and I told him, I don't care about this sport, but I might cry right now. I'm so happy for the Twins.
It was the best. But I think that's where people draw a lot of inspiration is the Twins didn't have the best regular season. There were a bunch of points during the year where you're like, oh my God, can you just have the season be done? Like, this isn't even enjoyable to watch, but they got a spot. And that's I think what a lot of Wild fans are hoping for at this point is that you get in and you have the opportunity to just kind of shock the world. We know all of the limitations. We know all the things that have gone wrong this season. But the fact of the matter is that the Wild are 7-1-1 in their last 9 games. And at a time in which they absolutely needed to start racking up some wins, they have. And so somebody like me who has been pretty staunch critic of this team all season, you get to the point where you have to even acknowledge, like, you have to, like in last night's game against the Kraken,
you got to give them their flowers. They dominated.
I could not. There was really nothing that I even looked to nitpick in that win. They made it comfortable. They took control of that game, and it didn't look like a team playing on a back-to-back, which I think was the best part. Like, they took the fight to the Kraken, and so you pick up 2 key wins on the West Coast. They're 2 points out right now. Like, at this point, you are invested into making a push for the postseason, whether people think they have a legitimate chance to make it or not. You're invested. And so at this point, it's full steam ahead for this Wild team. We just hope that some of those things that have been issues all season don't come crawling back at the worst time. Like, what would happen, and I hate to even bring this into the conversation, but what would happen if you have a critical injury at this point in the season? Like, it's just, it is at this point where they have like no margin for error down the stretch the rest of the season.
Well, a couple things there, and we'll dive into just the whole injury narrative and how it affected this season and how it may be the whole reason the season played out the way it did. But you talked about one of the 2 losses in that last positive stretch overall for the Wild, and one of those was the Winnipeg Jets, who beat the Wild 6-3. I personally was looking forward to this game, as based on their last few matchups this season, I think a rivalry was formed this year. Now, though I think the Jets and the Wild, they would go kind of head to head. The fan bases on social media would go at each other, and they were competitive games in the past. I feel like this season, I think a little divisional rivalry was finally formed. And the Wild don't really have a single rival. Like, some people say it's the Avs. Some people say it's Chicago. Our grandpas still say it's the Vancouver Canucks. I'm kidding. Our parents still say it's the Vancouver Canucks because of the one. Wes Wall still says it's the Vancouver Canucks, right? But no, it seems this year that it kind of was solidified that no, Winnipeg and Minnesota, they don't like each other. I was looking forward to the game. I still thought it was competitive overall despite the loss. What were your thoughts on that game? And were you excited in the lead up, kind of like we are excited to see those Battle of Alberta games, especially when Tkachuk was with Calgary, and there was just like a little something extra to it?
Oh, absolutely. Here's perfect analogy, I think, for what you're talking about the rivalry with the Jets. If you're in a dark alley and you're fighting a bunch of people, you don't necessarily remember that one person got a couple of torso shots in the Dallas Stars. You remember who hit you last. Right. And that's, I think, why this rivalry has been born with this Winnipeg Jets team, is these teams do not like each other. Ryan Hartman and Cole Perfetti, a perfect example of that. But Brendan Dillon on Kirill Kaprizov kind of getting that started. And this goes back all the way to Logan Stanley and Baby Giraffe on skates and that awkward fall with Kirill Kaprizov. Like, that's what kind of started this whole thing. And you had that epic moment between Rick Bowness and Dean Evison at the end of last season, where Bowness does the you're a real short man, and Dean's like, come on over, we've got plenty of fists to go around. It's like, I don't just have to punch assistant coaches, I can throw a few swings in. So it's become like a bad blood kind of a rivalry this year, which is just great. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, that matchup against the Jets, it was one of those, okay, let's see what the Wild have, because they had won a handful of games in a row. And this is kind of another thing, Isha, that's happened this season quite a bit, is you get 3 or 4 games in a row, and then you get one of those show me games where it's like, okay, here's the Central Division opponent. Here's a Western Conference opponent. Let's go get one against those guys. And there have been instances where they have, but there have also been a bunch of instances where they just have not been able to get that kind of signature win. And a lot of the games, the big problem, I think, is a lot of the games have been rather lopsided. All the Dallas games, all of the loss against Arizona, 6-0. That game looks pretty bad right now.
Especially with how bad Arizona is now versus how they were okay in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, they were frisky. They were possibly frisky in the playoff conversation, but they have completely fallen off the face of the earth to the point where their GM's like, we're open for business. Like we can't do it anymore.
To the point where they're just trolling Gary, going, we don't even need to make our deadlines on when we need to, tell you anything about our rink. We're good, bro. We're good.
Yeah, we're just going to focus on selling players on the field as opposed to finding that arena.
But sorry. Do you know, I was talking to our boy Richie Flores last week on the Sota Pod. He still kind of does a podcast for the Arizona Coyotes, but he used to cover them quite closely. You know, it's $180 to get in the door at the Mullet Arena. To get in the door, dude, at a college ring, and it's like 20 or 30 to go watch an ASU game.
Well, I don't like that.
Insane. So he's like, yeah, I've actually gone to ASU games this year. I've never gone to an Arizona Coyotes game at the Mullet Arena yet, because he's like, why? I'll spend $30 and go see ASU play there.
I get you have limited capacity for seats, but
yeah, but that's your fucking fault, Arizona.
That's their doing.
It's not the fans' fault. They're still, there's like the ones who are in the area are coming to support you. It's not their fault that you've continued to fuck them around so much so they don't have confidence in his team. And my boy Richie, like he even said on the podcast, like, look, I'm a loyal fan. I've been a loyal fan my whole life. Like I'm one of those in Arizona who is a hockey fan first. And right now it's so hard for me to buy into a team that I don't even know what the fuck's going on. Like, why am I going to give them my money, my time, my heart, my passion, when in 6 months they could be in Kansas City, fucking Quebec, fucking Houston? We don't know, right?
Yeah, it's hard. I don't envy any of them having to try to sift through what's all going on, because it seems like there are so many indications like that they're going to be moving, and the NHL just continues to try to throw them lifelines. Now, some of these comments recently seem like it's trending in a different direction finally, but think about the number of times that the NHL has tried to keep this a thing when it just seems like the writing's on the wall that they're going to be best suited to go somewhere else.
Dude, I remember in 2013 when the Winnipeg Jets lost a playoff series to the Anaheim Ducks. There was a news article that came out, because I remember why I bring up that playoff series, because it was right after that playoff series ended, and I remember I was doing, I think, like practicum work for some class in university up in northern BC. So other than working in school, I was just tuned into just hockey shit. And I was like at my desk or something studying. And I remember I saw the news article that was titled "Trucks Are Idling, Arizona Moving to Seattle." So this has been the storyline. And obviously that didn't happen. Seattle was an expansion team, etc. But this has been a storyline since even before and even in 2013. So like, it's just crazy what's going on there. It's just crazy what's going on there. But anyways, back to Minnesota Wild here. Can the Wild's up and down season be attributed to just injuries, Seth? Or do you think there's a lot more to it? And if so, like, please, obviously let us know. And I mean, like coaching, for example, do you think injuries was more so the reason than even the coaching? Like, do you think if they were fully healthy, John Hines wouldn't even be in the equation here? Like, what do you think was really the biggest crux for the Wild this season? Because for me, I think it's injuries, and every team has that, every few years, where it's just like you get the injury bug and you just kind of have to play with what you got and quite frankly tread water and survive. But what are your thoughts overall this season?
I'll try to kind of paint it this way: is I think there are 3 players currently on pace to play in a full 82 game season on this roster. That's it. And those 3, Joel Eriksson, Brock Faber, and Marco Rossi, but everybody else has missed games due to various ailments, whether a bump or a bruise here that leads to 1 or 2 games out of the lineup, or Jared Spurgeon being out for the season. I just go down the list: Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Zuccarello, Marcus Foligno, Pat Maroon, Freddie Gaudreau, Matt Boldy, Marcus Johansson, I think, has missed time too.
Yep.
It just up and down the list, every single player, both goalies have missed time this season. And you look at the fact, like I was super critical during that 1-7-1 stretch, but you're basically fielding the Iowa Wild roster. at that point in the season. And so it's been a huge hurdle to try to overcome, but this team has just been Jekyll and Hyde too. Like some nights they come out of the gate blazing, like just beat a team down within the first couple of minutes of a game. And then there are other games where it's like they get a 1-0 lead and it just feels like the only way they're going to win the game is if they hold that 1-0 lead. Like the moment the opponent scores the tying goal, you know that go-ahead goal is coming relatively soon after. It's just there have been so many just kind of Matt Boldy uses the term passengers throughout this season.
Autopilot games,
yeah, there just have been a bunch of games where big pieces of the lineup are just kind of out there coasting. And, you know, Matt Boldy's a great case study of kind of how this season has gone.
Totally. And that's one of my questions too. So like, I'm glad you're getting into it. It was like, what do you think? Just like this season, why has Matt Boldy been up and down? Do you think it's because of the injuries too, where he just hasn't been able to build chemistry with his line mates?
Well, I think I get lost with this a lot, is Boldy is still, for as much pressure as is put on him with his contract and with the fact that he is being paid to be one of the leaders of this team, he is still 22 years old.
22, guys.
Yeah. I was hitting the bars up
22.
when I was 22. Like I was going out pretty much every night, trying to push all of my major responsibilities as far away as I possibly could. Like at the end of the day, the consistency is the part. If the consistency is the part that Matt Boldy needs to add to his game, like that's the part that he will develop here over these next couple of years. He's got something like 21 or 22 goals since John Hines took over. And since John Hines took over, he's a point per game player. And I looked at this the other day. I think his longest stretch without a point since John Hines took over is like 3 games.
Wow.
So he has been, since Hines took over, he's been a pretty consistent contributor. And yeah, there are games where he doesn't factor in the scoring. I think we just would love to see that first stretch, those first 19 games where he had just 1 goal. People would love to see that just kind of spread out a little bit more to maybe he has something like 16 or 17 goals since Hines took over and a few more when Dean was here. But he's 22 years old. Like he's been unbelievable since he got put on that top line with Kaprizov and Eriksson. And I think by being like the third wheel of that line, and I'm saying that not as a diss, but
no,
like
we all get it.
When you're on the ice with Kaprizov and Eriksson for a majority of your time in the game, you got to keep up. Like you got to keep up with what those two do, because those are both freakish skaters and their motor never stops.
Well, and they do, and they perform their assignments to the best out there, right? Like Kaprizov is one of the best goal scorers and offensive threats in the game, and Eriksson is one of the hardest players to play against one-on-one, and he is a threat in front of the net, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And just look at the number of things that Eriksson is asked to do by this team.
He's so good, dude.
1C, he's your net front option on the power play. He is your top defensive forward on the penalty kill. He's your top defensive forward in general. Like
he's taking so much damage in front of the net every single night, cross-check to shit, trying to create space in the crease. John
Hines, to his credit, and this is I think a little bit of the piece of the Freddie Gaudreau angle too. When John Hines came in, like I don't know what meetings happened to where it's like, okay, what makes this team tick? Somebody might have said, Freddie Gaudreau is kind of our go-to center in key spots. And he just looked and he said, why wouldn't it be Joel Eriksson? Like, why wouldn't you just have him? Because now, since John Hines took over, he takes like every key face-off.
As he should.
Yes, he 100% should be the guy. And John Hines is making him that guy, and it's making him better.
Yeah. He's so good. He's so
Like,
good.
it's
Dude, like he could potentially, like he's on pace to score near 40. Like if he
Mhm.
stays healthy, he's on pace to score 35, 40 goals, and he's going to be in the Selke running as one of the best defensive players in the league. And he's probably still going to win the Athletics most hated player among other players because for some reason they don't like his baby face that we all love. What a shithead out there. I love it. Dude, he is in my. I know Kaprizov is the most valuable player on the team. Like I get it, but without a Eriksson Ek, we're not winning games. Kaprizov will help us stay in games, but you're not going to win games without a player like Joel Eriksson Ek. He is my MVP this year, 100%.
Here's the way to spin that. Kaprizov may be the MVP for this team, but Joel Eriksson Ek is the least replaceable player on this team. If you take Joel Eriksson Ek off this team, you're
Kaprizov has to score 2 more goals for you to win a game.
100%. Like you just Eriksson Ek is the one that you cannot replace because of the sheer number of things that he does on a nightly basis.
Let's talk about goaltending for a minute. Should the Wild continue down the stretch with Gustavsson? Now, I know Wallstedt is almost ready to move up. I mean, it could be next year. It could be the year after as like, okay, you are part of this team. You're not up and down anymore. Regardless, like he's coming soon, okay? So the Wild are going to be planning around him sooner than later at this point, especially with the positive sample size that we've seen at the AHL level, even with the AHL team not being that good this year. We know what he is for the most part. The NHL brass knows what he is for the most part. So again, I go back to my question. Do you think Gustavsson is going to be part of the Minnesota Wild's plan moving forward as a pair with Wallstedt? Or do you think they should do a complete overhaul of him and Flurry moving forward?
I think I'll say tentatively yes on Gustavsson because I think the situation with Gus is last year we saw the absolute like top of the line what he is as a goalie, like what he can offer you on his best nights, night in, night out. He was insanely good down the stretch. And this season, I think teams got a little bit of a read on what Gus can do because let's think about this too. That last year was Philip Gustafsson's first full season run as an NHL starting goalie. So teams had film from him playing in front behind the Ottawa Senators decor. Like that's not a great roll of film to pull from. So teams finally got a full book as to Philip Gustafsson's tendencies, what makes him tick, where he's strong, and areas where he struggles. And I think we're seeing Gustavsson now at the point where it's on him to tweak his game a little bit to counteract what teams are doing to him. We see him give up goals in the same spots pretty consistently. Like it's usually up top. And you know, if he can find a way to take that area away. And look, this is another part of the equation too. It's hard to change muscle memory in the middle of a season as a goalie. Like as much as you can try to like tweak little things like, hey, do this instead of what you're currently doing. Like it's like trying to change your golf swing during the middle of a tournament. Yeah. Like you may be able to get away with it a little bit, but the moment something starts to go wrong, you revert back to where you were. So I think if Gustavsson can figure that out, I think he may not get to fully where he was at last year, but I don't think it's out of the question for him to play a step above what he's done this year for sure. It's just a matter of him making the adjustments to counteract what teams are doing. And so I think in that vein, I think Bill Guerin's going to play patience here. He is somebody who, unless your goalie has your agent go up to him and say, hey, we're unhappy, he is somebody who he errs on the side of patience with a lot of these contracts that he signed. Now, who's to say if things kind of fall off the rails next year, that if Gustafsson's playing well, that maybe you say, all right, we're gonna see what we can get, and we're gonna give Jesper the full run for the rest of the season. That could be a scenario that plays out next year, but I think at this point they keep him, and I think they roll with him in the wall with Gustavsson and the wall next year for that starting tandem.
Yeah, it's not a bad look to have two young goalies come up together, especially with one who has had success and experience in the National Hockey League level. It's just interesting to see if Flurry wants to stay one more year based on how good he's been playing this year. They're going to give him that. They're going to give him that. And I think Wallstedt will understand that as well. Like, he might be like, well, if Flurry's not here, obviously I'm coming to the NHL, and that's where the money's at. That's where I want to be. That's the goal. But if Flurry wants to play, I think, barring another team offering him money at the Wild, can't pay him, or like gonna roll their eyes at and be like, come on, dude, like, really? You're gonna do that to us? Barring the fact that maybe they can get something for him at the trade deadline, which again, I don't know if they're gonna go that direction now that they're actually playing well, right? It seems a little less believable and likely than it was a few weeks ago. I think Gustavsson at 25 years old, I think people forget that he's still so young as far as goalie standards go, right? Like, I remember when Demko came in with the Vancouver Canucks, he was 24 after like 3 years of college, right? Like, or 3 or 4 years of college, and he was still a young guy. Like, Gustavsson is still a young guy. So with Flurry or with Wallstedt, whether he's the 1A, 1B, he's going to have ups and downs at his age, at his stage in his career. This year, I think obviously he didn't start well, and with the Wild being up and down with their injuries, their inconsistencies, and at the end of the day, inconsistencies on the back end, on the defensive end more than anything. Like, you're going to see goalies probably play worse when there's a revolving door in front of them with the systems being out the door. And look, I think Mermis has been incredible, but like, when Mermis is in and out of the lineup, when Merrill is still in the lineup somehow, even though I have no idea why or how he should be. And Hoppy and Z were even talking about, I don't know if you heard this. They were like, do you think he knows how bad he is right now? Like, do you think he actually knows? Like, he's out there and he's like, for fuck's sakes, why are they still putting me out here right now? Like, do you think, which is, it's kind of fucked up, but a hilarious thing to like talk about.
Every time.
And then Goligoski too. Like, what the fuck is he doing out there right now too? So
every time he sees the lineup card, Merrill is just like,
why are you doing this to your team? And it sucks because Merrill seems like such a good guy, but it's just,
for sure,
man, he's so bad right now. But
like,
anyway,
that's a thing that kind of gets forgotten too, is like, we may bash, we may criticize players.
Nothing against the person.
It's never personal.
No, it's like,
it's just. But here's the thing:
pawns, king, queens, knights in the game that we cover at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. Here's another, like, let's say Flurry does decide to come back for one more go. I don't think by going with Flurry and Gustavsson for another year, that doesn't change anything for Jesper. Like, that just means that they give him another season to kind of further develop, further season himself. Like, he's still the guy. And so
you get Flurry, 5 extra starts this year, or 6 extra starts, whatever.
Yeah. If Flurry does end up coming back, honestly, with what he has shown that he still has, like, I'm not going to get super upset. Yeah.
No, I'm okay with it. It's going to be a 1-year deal. He knows that. He ain't going to ask for 3 years like Ryan Reeves. I know everyone is so not a fan of Ryan Reeves, but I fucking love the guy. He's the Toronto All-Star, Seth. An absolute.
He was a vibe when he was here. Like,
that he was.
It was one of those situations too where you kind of look and you're like, you look at his, and he's by no means a points guy. But you like look at
unless Kaprizov's out on injury, then he's a goal scoring guy.
Yeah, then he goes nuts. But it was one of those situations, like, you look at his numbers and you look at some of the underlying stuff and you're like, this shouldn't work. And him being in the lineup, like, it just completely changed the outcome of last regular season.
Vibes per 60, man. Look at Kuzmenko joins the Calgary Flames, scores a little bit, but he brought some vibes to the group. Right? Like, he's a vibes player more than anything, because he's not the fastest skater out there. He's got hands and vibes and crazy fucking hair.
sometimes it's sports work in weird ways. Like sometimes all it takes is a team seeing their general manager say, "Hey, I still believe in you guys," to get them going.
Yeah.
Like
Simple things.
it doesn't even necessarily have to be like a number one guy. It just takes like hey, we're going to get somebody to come in and kind of help shake things up, and they just go on a run.
I can just imagine if Bruce was still with the team, or when he was with the team. Boys, I walked a couple extra miles tonight, and I skipped the Haagen-Dazs for dinner. And the boys, yeah, let's go, Brucey, let's fucking go, and just getting ready. I skipped the Haagen-Dazs for dessert. Let's go, boys. Like little things, man. The little things. Let's talk some prospects here for a bit before I let you go. Because we'll have more to talk about once we get closer and closer to the playoffs, and Seth is going to join us a few more times before the playoffs here, ladies and gentlemen, down this stretch. But I know that you've been covering both of these players in particular on your YouTube channel, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about them here. Wild prospect Danila Yurov breaks Vladimir Tarasenko's KHL record, 48 points as a player, 21 years and under. Do you think he joins the Wild next season, or do you think he marinates 1 year, maybe another 2-year extension with his current KHL team, as they've actually started to play him and use him this year, where he dominated?
Yeah, this is a fascinating one, because I've seen a lot of people who suggest, like, is he better served to continue to play in the KHL and just continue to develop there, or to come to Iowa and play there before getting thrown into the regular lineup? Honestly, at this point, like, if he is continuing to be like a top dog in the KHL and he wants to sign one more season, because the other part of it too is they're able to offer him a ton more money there than he would get here.
Oh yeah, because in Iowa he's making obviously under $1 million. In the KHL, he's probably making like 1.5 or something. Like, let's be honest, maybe even
honestly,
more.
Like, if he wants to go get his bag for one more year and just terrorize the KHL, the Wild are probably going to do exactly with him what they are likely to do with Kuznetsov. Just burn a year of the ELC and get him right up. Like, I think once he comes here, I think he will just go straight to
the Wild.
Yeah. Because it's like, what do you really have to... I can see if
even next year, though, you're saying, like, even if in like beginning of the year, like, I mean, obviously, like, he'll have to come through training camp and whatnot and earn his spot. But you think like the intention will be like, no, we want him on this team.
So if the KHL season, let's say he does sign one more year in the KHL. If I have it correct, like, the season is ending basically now if you don't make the season's over.
Yeah, yeah. So for example, like, Marat's done. So like Marat could come over, like, we could hear about it in a couple days where it's like Marat's coming over and he's signing with the Wild. But Euros, they made the playoffs.
So then that's,
Sochi didn't.
Season too. Okay.
Sochi's been horrible. That's why Marat's points kind of took a little bit of a dive.
Yeah, they are real.
I think they're in like bottom 3 in the KHL, whereas like Eurov's team's in the top 3.
Yeah. So if he wants to sign with the KHL, get money one more season, I'm fine with that, because you look at this roster right now, you have a couple of spots that are maybe opening up, but now you've got one that you're going to give to Kuznetsov. Your top 6 is pretty rigid at this point. It seems like this is kind of playing out for him to be the natural successor for Marcus Johansson, because Johansson comes off the books after next season. Feels like
why re-sign him? Yeah, like why throw money at him when you have prospects in Russia and or in the OHL, WHL, and in Iowa?
Yeah, it feels like kind of the natural succession point is for Yurov to just take that roster spot. You'll have Kuznetsov eating another one. Beyond that, there are maybe going to be the Deweys, and you maybe have a couple spots in your fourth line and maybe one other roster spot in your lineup to fill. And so
they have to get rid of Gaudreau. Like, I'm sorry. Like Kuznetsov has, like, his spot is Gaudreau's spot. He has to be that third line center.
Have you ever seen a contract extension given out based on the premise that the previous coach played him higher up in the lineup than he probably should have been played, because that's exactly what happened here. Hines came in and he's
I hate to say it, but like Foligno almost.
I mean, like Hines came in and was like, "Oh, no, we're not going to put you in the top 6. Like, you're a third or a fourth line guy." And to his credit, Gaudreau has not. I don't think Gaudreau's been elevated once, save injury, since Hines took over. I think it's been third or fourth line pretty much the entire season, and he's going from 18 or 19 minutes a night under Dean to like 12 or 13 minutes a night under John Hines. It's pretty clear that he just is not like a huge part of the equation under Hines. He's like just a guy at this point. We got 4 more years of it.
I think still, though, based off his last 2 seasons of the Wild before here, I still think they could swindle something for. Like, I still think teams will be interested in him because he had over 30 and over 40 points, right? The last 2 seasons. So, like, I'm sure like they could get rid of him. It's just like who's gonna be the dancing partner. But regardless, sorry I brought that up and kind of interjected. It's just like if Marat is going to come into this lineup this year or next, he has to go. Because if it's not him, I'm sorry, it's Foligno. Because the Deweys aside, they're fourth line. Marat is not a fourth line guy. If anything, he is a top 6 guy, but his first year in the third line in an offensive role will be fine.
And it feels to me like that's a real good spot because Rossi's line partners have been pretty inconsistent. I know he's working with Lucchini and Lettieri right now because they grind, they battle. And that kind of is, I guess, the fit at this point.
Marat, Foligno, Rossi, let's fucking go, dude.
It feels like Marat is a perfect line mate for Rossi. Just 2 young guys that have some good offensive
and just
skill.
one bigger guy or a more tenacious guy, like either Foligno or Hartman. I don't care who. Someone who can create space or who can just be that veteran and, like I said, more tenacious guy in the lineup. That's perfect for them. Now, I know Marat's smaller as well, so like that's why they just need someone a little like who can create space or who can just take that proverbial damage. But no, I'm so excited to see Marat in the NHL. Like, I'm excited to see Yurov too, don't get me wrong, but like Marat, I feel like it's closer. I feel like he's going to be in North America before Yurov, and it could be this year, which is crazy.
Yeah. And it's the sign. We've talked about these guys a lot, that there is this wave of prospects that is going to come here and be able to help inject some much needed skill into this lineup. And Marat he's the first domino. So that is he's here. That means more guys are on the way, which is, I think, what everybody has been hoping for over these last couple of seasons. This lineup got locked in pretty concretely. There is always a need for more skill. And so to be able to inject these guys in gradually to fill key spots, that's what we hope for.
Riley Height in the WHL is forcing them to do that right now. He is forcing Billy Guerin to make a spot available for him, because I'm sorry, this guy's going to come into the AHL and in 5 games they're going to be like, oh fuck yeah, this guy's ready for
he's going to have
AHL, dude.
He's going to have the boldy
exactly,
where it's like, why are we playing this guy here? He's scored 9 goals in 4 games. Like, he's not going to be served getting AHL time. Like, he's just ready.
Oh, look at that. 101 points at the end of the weekend. 101 points, 32 goals in 56 games, ladies and gentlemen.
I know we haven't seen a ton of Judd Brackett's work yet, but
this might be one of the best that we've ever seen, or that we've seen so far.
This is Riley Height feels like his opus, like his this is Judd Brackett cooking. So Tarek how do you say his last name? Prasak, the 17-year-old who is going to be drafted now in the first round this year, his family, and I was telling Z this, better be buying Height Ford Raptors for that Prince George Snow or Tesla, because this guy is the reason that their son is going to be drafted first, in the first round. Because, like, again, 17 years old, 58 games played on Height's line, 34 goals, 84 points as a rookie in the WHL. Now he's going to be like, he's Riley Height is the reason he's going to be drafted in the first round. Thank you for all the primary assists on all of my goals.
Dude, unbelievable. That's what I'm saying. Like, the parents got to buy him like a nice sports car if he's going to play one more year. Again, somewhere nicer than Prince George. Or if he comes to Minnesota, they got to give him like a nice $100,000 truck, because
Little thank you card. That's all you need.
Oh, I mean, because like he's responsible for their kids' signing bonus.
Just insane. Like I saw the tweet over the weekend where they said, and Riley Height has already equaled his point total from last season. I'm like, what now?
That's crazy. And there's still 25 more games in the dub season.
Just insane.
Unreal, dude. Unbelievable. Yeah. So I mean, from the tone of your voice, you're high on Riley Height and you're excited to see him come over to or come up, I should say.
I wasn't a huge fan of the Stramel pick. Since I understand why the Wild went that route, because he was somebody. This is how NHL drafts work. This is how drafts work. He was somebody that the Wild had identified that they wanted, that was going to fall somewhere between their pick in the first round and their pick in the second round.
Yeah.
And so rather than risk him going off the board, they made that selection, and not a huge positive reaction to that pick. But then Judd Brackett goes and gets Riley Height in the second round. And it's like, oh, okay. Sorry, I doubted, because that was just an absurd steal.
Yeah. It's truly amazing to watch him play. Like, he's one of the best players in the WHL right now, outside of that one kid who's going to be drafted in 2026, who's already at like 90 some points, and he's 17. But
jeez,
unbelievable. Yeah, the projected first overall for 2026. I just looked him up yesterday. I forget his name off the top of my head, but like, yeah, 96 points already, and he just turned 17. I think he was like underager or exceptional status or whatever. But yeah, and the dub doesn't allow exceptional status for just anyone. Like, Savoy applied and didn't get it. Savoy, the kid in Buffalo. But this kid must have got it, because he played most of the year as a 16-year-old, and he's 96 points in 58 games.
That's 96 more points than I ever had.
Dude, unreal. Like, he's putting up Bedard numbers already. It's nuts. And we got 2 more years of this kid to cook in junior hockey in Canada. It's nuts. It is nuts. All right, Seth, before I let you go here, and this has been awesome. Like, the time just flies whenever we're talking hockey and just hanging out together, buddy. So I really appreciate it, as always, and I look forward to more of these hits in the future, down the road. I mean, soon, as we get close to potential playoff appearance here with the Minnesota Wild, and just NHL playoffs in general, as I know you and I are going to be glued to our TVs when that begins. But before we wrap up here, what are 3 key things that the Wild have to keep doing correctly or correct to make the playoffs and have success the rest of this season?
Number 1 for me is to just identify kind of what your second, third, and fourth lines are. You know, we saw a pretty good effort from the second line of Zuccarello, Johansson, and Hartman against the Kraken. Whatever your combination ends up to be the counterpunch to Kaprizov, Boldy, and Eriksson Ek, identify it and get them going. Because, you know, you can win in the regular season with one line doing the work, but when you get to the postseason, your opponent's going to throw every single thing that they have at that line and are going to try to key in on the others. So if the Wild, and it doesn't have to be the second line every night, but let's just kind of sort out these line combinations and try to get something that works between 2, 3, and 4 that can counterpunch what the top line is doing. I haven't come up with a good name for them yet, but we'll just call them the Wreckers. There you go. The Wrecker line.
The Wrecker line. The Wrecking Balls.
The demolition crew, something like that. I'll workshop that. So that's number 1 on my list. Number 2 is I just would like to see the goalie combo, just work on trying to avoid, shore up some of those areas in which they've given up what we would consider soft goals. You don't need this Wild team doesn't need Vezina caliber goalie play. They just need enough. They got great goalie play against Edmonton, and I thought Flurry was really good against the Kraken too. If you can get some of that and just kind of clean things up, like those leaky 5-hole goals. I know you're going to get the weird puck luck goals every now and again, but if they can just keep it rolling and avoid those nights where they just get completely like just overmatched, overwhelmed, that'll be key. And I looked at the special teams earlier today. The Wild are like 7th in the NHL since 2024 started with their power play. Love that. Keep that group going. But the fact that the penalty kill is at like 78.8% in the same span is also encouraging because, again, the demons always come out in the postseason.
Yeah.
We've seen it the last 2 years. We saw it against St. Louis. We saw it against Dallas. If you don't have a good penalty kill, they're going to eat you alive. So if the Wild can just, and that's probably a super cliche answer, but if the Wild can just keep consistency, the thing that we haven't really seen this season, consistency. You're not going to win every game down the stretch. Consistency, being ready to go for these games as opposed to falling behind 1 or 2-0 within the first 6 minutes of a game. Like we just want to see like, hey, we're ready for the dance. People want to believe that this team is capable of getting to the postseason. So just show it. Just show it. Just do the thing. And it's going to be a crazy last couple months of the season.
If they get Vancouver, man, I am just going to be smitten. I'm just going to be smitten, Seth. Man, this has been amazing. Like I had a few other things of note, but we covered everything that we needed to cover, and this is just an excuse for me to bring you back on very, very soon, my man. I know all of our listeners love when you join us here, love when we feature Seth Topall on the show, and I just really appreciate both hanging out before I click the record button, catching up, and talking puck with you, my friend. It's an absolute pleasure every single time we bring you on the Sota Pod here. And like I said, I'm just so happy to see everything that you're working on continue to grow and blow up. And speaking of all of that, since we're out of time, let us know where everyone can find you so they can consume more of your content, my friend.
The beautiful part is all you have to do is search Locked on Wild and you're going to find the whole arsenal. You're going to find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those main podcast networks. You can find us at every single one of those. As Isha mentioned, the YouTube channel continues to just climb and climb. So you can find us there for live postcasts. We're starting to do some live episodes throughout the week as well. And just continuing to try to stay on top of the content machine that is Locked on Wild and trying to stay afloat in what has just been a crazy NHL season. Isha, to you guys, cheers on as I go now to my flavored water because I don't have a seltzer near me. Cheers to getting to 1,000 subs on YouTube. You guys have been OGs since the first time that I stepped into the hockey realm, first as somebody that had no idea what I was doing and was very unsure of myself. And now to get to this point, like we just continue to play the hits and continue to have a lot of fun doing it.
I love it, man. Like I said, you're one of my favorites in the community. You're one of my good friends outside of just like, content creator face. And I look forward to more collaborations with Locked on Wild as we continue to roll on through the end of this season into, knock on wood, the playoffs and this postseason, my friend, as I know you continue to grind in the summer just like us. As always, Seth, the keys to the castle are yours, my friend, and I look forward to shooting the shit with you again here very, very soon. Appreciate it, man. Big thanks to Seth again. That was amazing. That was a lot of fun. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. I know the last couple of weeks we've stayed in the realm of hockey. We stayed in the realm of NHL, but we need to get our Wild fix scratched, right? And I know the Sota Pod here is a little bit different now. Hoppy helping out Joe Smith. So go check out that show if you haven't already, ladies and gentlemen. First episode with Oliver Moore dropped last week. This week, Jimmy Snuggerud on the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be another awesome podcast. Don't forget to tune into MNCAA all week, as well as Judd's Buds live every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Central on our YouTube channel, so the Sota Pod. And thank you to everybody who helped us get to 1,000 subscribers on our Sota Pod YouTube channel. Seriously, you guys are all amazing. We appreciate you all. And now that we reached that milestone, we're going to keep our foot on the gas, ladies and gentlemen, continue to grow, continue to host live shows and more. So subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Now we can actually pay Z for his hard work. Oh my goodness. All right, guys, that is it for the show. Big shout out to Seth Toupal. Again, NCAA dropping this week. Judd's Buds, Fellowship of the Rinks with the Athletics, Joe Smith. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and go check out Seth's work at Locked on Wild again. If you're tuning in on Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from, please rate and review. That is the best thing you can do today, this week, in your life, ladies and gentlemen. 5 stars, kind review. Let me know if you've been to the breweries that we talked about in the Hoppy Hour segment of the show, and comment on YouTube or let us know how you like the new Hoppy Hour segment, as we're going to continue to do these moving forward. Appreciate all your guys' support. You can find me on Twitter at VS Sports Talk. You can find the Sota Pod on Twitter at Sota Pod. Not the Sota Pod anymore on Twitter because of those damn hackers, at Sota Pod, but everywhere else on social at the Sota Pod. Signing off, I'm Isha Jerome, alongside Seth Topall for this one, and my good friend Joe. This has been the Sota Pod, presented by Better Edge, 7th Avenue Pizza, Northland Vodka, and Waggle Golf. Don't fear, just drink some beer and stay wild.